Hey, what's up? It's your boy, Juice Jones Creates, here with another episode. This week, we're going to be talking about content creation. Brought my veggie shake with me because it's my first meal of the day. Been awake for like 4 hours, but had a lot to take care of. So, I'm doing a video on content creation because I have plans on creating 365 days worth of mental health shorts over on the Get Home Safe Hug 'em channel. Now, when folks think of content creation, they're usually like, I gotta create content, I gotta give the people something, they have things to focus on. But when it comes to mental health and the content that we cover, it's how do you tell the story, how do you make it digestible, and how do you help people relate to what you're speaking on. So, for example, out of the 20 episodes, I'm going to be doing a collaboration with my boy Bronson, and we're going to be touching on the life of an introvert. Now, if you're teaching someone about the life of an introvert, which we're going to dedicate 20 days out of 2022 to that content, 5 days have to be dedicated to what is an introvert. So you have to define an introvert. You have to give examples of what an introvert would either look like or feel like as a person. And then you have to dedicate 5 days to what is the spectrum of introvert. So you can have someone who is an introvert publicly, but privately they're an extrovert. You can have someone who is publicly an extrovert, but when they get home, completely introvert. This is where they recharge their batteries, they face the day, they finally have privacy, and they don't have to put on the mask of survival or put away and tuck away the anxiety that they've had to deal with when it comes to talking all day. And then in week 3, which I'm doing this by 5 weeks for each collab that I'm doing, we're going to be touching on, okay, what is the ideal environment for an introvert look like? What do they prefer? What are they used to? What is a great setup for someone who may be an introvert, and why do they need this kind of ideal environment for that particular person? And then the 5th week is, if you're a friend, family, or loved one, when it comes to dealing with someone who may be an introvert, how can you create an environment for an introvert or someone who is an introvert or identifies as an introvert? How do you create the ideal environment for them, and how do you treat them in the most ideal way to help them be comfortable in different environments that they may not be adept to? Now, for the average person, it sounds like, oh man, that's a lot of work. But for someone like me who does this on the regular, honestly, I could write a script in a little bit under 2 hours, looking up the meaning of something, coming up with relatable examples. After coming up with relatable examples, implementation, I'm really good with that. And then practicing of the habits. So sometimes teaching isn't about being the one who knows it all. Sometimes teaching is about how do you make it relatable and digestible. And that comes with practice, obviously. After the content we've created from Get Home Safe from about 2019 to present, I wasn't heavy on content creation. Content creation in the beginning for me was photography. How do we tell the story through pictures? How do I get the right rooms with the right folks? How do I add the correct photos that will tell the story? And then it went from that to, okay, now that the story is here, how do we add to the narrative? Are you willing to advertise other brands that aren't your brands, but that company may have the right message? When you meet someone who relates to what you've put out there, the content you've created, who it affects, how do you build relationships with those people and hopefully work with them in the future? Going into 2022, I plan on collaborating with, I'd say, a little bit under 6 people. So math-wise, that's easily 120 episodes out of the 365 episodes I have to shoot next week. Well, not next week, but for next year. And it sounds like a lot of work, but when you script things, what I found is when you're able to write down your ideas, write a script, knowing everyone's part, where you transition, how to make it a smooth transition, and how to help people run within each other's sentences, you get to that one point where it's like, okay, here's their part, here's my part, I can handle the edits. And most of the edits I do for a lot of the content that I put out is directly on my cell phone. So if you have a chance and you would like to figure out the easiest way to make content, if you are a content creator or someone who would like to get into the game of creating content, that makes sense. Because when you create, well, when I create to add value to the community around me. And the importance of adding value to the community around you is not just believing in what you say, but what are your sources? How can you verify the source? Do you have proof that whatever advice you're giving them works and it's helpful for the community? Would this advice work in any community, not just your community? And also, are you aware of your demographic and what people may need when it comes to the examples that we put out there? Content creation, and I feel content is such a word that is now overused in the community, because when it wasn't content, it was media. When it wasn't media, I wonder what was the word before media and content creation. I probably should look that up just in case for like next video. But the consistency of the amount of work that you put out, the sources, the folks who are actually in that demographic or in that specialty that you may be exploring is just as important as the content that you're putting out, because the content is made to help the community. So you sprinkle some here, sprinkle some there, sprinkle some everywhere, right? But then after that, are you reaching out to the right folks that are actually in it, getting their stories and putting it in there and asking for permission of, hey, can I use these examples because I have this community that I cater to and they may be interested in something like this. So no matter how large the project is or small the project is, I write scripts because it just helps me organize. It helps me keep track. It helps me, if I'm shooting something larger, remember my place in the, well, we did that and that was scheduled for this day, or we touched on that already, that was scheduled for this day. How do we reach back to the older content that I may have like shot and put it in this newer content and repurpose it where people say, oh, I remember that from last year, going into this year, oh, the concept itself has grown. How do you show growth and make it presentable? So on this here episode of Juice Jones Creates, ask yourself, are you providing value? And if not, that's okay, because value can be an open-ended word. For some people, value is entertainment. For some folks, value is growth. And for other people, value is a distraction. Distractions are nice. And outside of that, it's very important to maximize your time. So when it comes to content creation, if I had like a week schedule, I will only allow myself 6 hours tops for the whole entire week when it comes to content creation. That includes shorts, that includes all the videos that I shoot or maybe putting together, that also includes the topics. Now when it comes to like longer format interviews or anything else, that it's content creation, but that's long formatted content creation. So for example, on Thursday and Friday I shot about a little bit under 7 interviews to be released for 2022, because I have 2 shows that I'm releasing at the same time, but they're going to be on 2 different networks, between Juice Jones Creates and Get Home Safe Hug 'em. Get Home Safe Hug 'em, that's going to talk about anything mental health related, stories, narratives, what people are doing in the community, real life stories that are progressing the conversation on the physical playing field outside of the conversations. Because conversations are meant to move the spectrum, but it's very important to still keep the voice of the folks involved, especially those that you're helping. So when it comes to Get Home Safe, the three voices that matter to me are the therapists, those within the wellness community, and the community itself. So we dedicated 8 episodes to therapists, those who are certified, those who actually give therapy. What's it like to be a therapist? What do you see as a therapist? What issues have you run across as a therapist? How's the system helping you or not helping you? Second part, the wellness community. When it comes to yoga, when it comes to Tibetan sound bowls, when it comes to what would be considered meditation. How does one explore their wellness? When it comes to skincare or a self-care day, what does a self-care day look like, and where do you get your products? Can I afford those products? Is it for everyone in the community, or is it just a supplier thing? And then for the last part, which is community, when I look across Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, there's a large community that's built around those who are therapists when it comes to certificates, and those who are in the wellness community in terms of the practice of wellness. But I don't think that there's enough of a basis around the people who are the victims of their situation when it comes to what you're afflicted with when it comes to mental health. So, for example, what's life like dealing with depression? Does it meet you at the door when you wake up? Or is it in your dreams? It's in your bowl of cereal? Is it on your yoga mat? How does one deal with a depression bout? How does one deal with an anxiety attack? Were you aware that you were affected by anxiety or depression, and what that looks and feels like? Because mental health is recognition. You need to recognize when the moment's happening. The reason recognition is important isn't only to diagnose, but to be aware of what is happening to you. Not always the why, but what is happening to you. So if you know what's happening to you and you're able to get a calm mind, maybe you can make a difference for yourself until you get help. But if you don't know what's happening to you, how do you handle that, and what does that look like for the average person who may not be dealing with this on the regular? So to me, moments like that are important, because we're not always going to have someone to be there for us. Sometimes you're simply going to only have yourself, and what does it look like when you only have yourself? And I'm probably going to stop here when it comes to the content creation and the stories that are going to be told, because right now it's concepts, and I've heard some amazing stories and some very true stories. It's given me an opportunity to sit down with friends, loved ones, associates, and hear their stories from a different aspect. And when it comes to the folks who are therapists and in the wellness community, it's looking to humanize the experience of those people and the weight they put on their shoulders. And the platform is meant to humanize those that are actually going through the struggle. They are not just a number. They're not just a prescription. They're not just a click it, we took care of the community. They're people too. So learning or figuring out how to create that balance that's necessary for our community is just as important as the people that we take care of. So I'll end this with, this is Juice Jones Creates. Thanks for everyone who pulled up. Me and my veggie shake. Be safe out there, and happy holidays. I know Christmas is coming up soon. This might be my last video. I'm not sure yet. Christmas is the week next, but we'll see. But for now, appreciate everyone who's come out to support, and hope you guys are taking care of yourselves. Peace.